Throughout its history, the FA Cup has inspired future generations to dream and fueled the fire of ambition. None more so than when the underdogs are facing impossible odds against the conceived bigger teams. Here at 4 Hours More, we take a look at the 10 greatest giant killers in the history of the FA Cup. At 10, Shrewsbury Town. On the 4th of January 2003, Shrewsbury hosted Everton in the FA Cup. 80 places separated the teams, and to many it would be a formality for Everton to reach the next round. Former Everton captain and icon Kevin Ratcliffe had other ideas, and masterminded the victory over his former club. Everton fielded a strong team which included a young Wayne Rooney, while Shrewsbury featured the brother of future Everton star Phil Jagielka, Stephen. Shrewsbury featured former top-flight veterans, young talent and journeymen, and Shrewsbury manager Kevin Ratcliffe was coy on the chances of an upset before the game. And despite the huge disparity, his assertions were correct, as former top-flight striker Nigel Jemson grabbed 2 goals, the second coming a couple of minutes before the final whistle. While a deserved 2-1 victory, they drew Chelsea in the next round. The Shrews were resoundingly beaten 4-0 at Gay Meadow. The season wouldn't end well, as they won just 2 more games all season before relegation into the non-league, forcing the resignation of Kevin Ratcliffe shortly after. As for Everton, they would go on to finish 7th in the Premier League that season. The victory will forever be remembered as one of the greatest giant killings in FA Cup history. At number 9, Havant and Waterlooville. In 2008, Havant and Waterlooville provided one of the shocks of the FA Cup. Sitting in the 6th tier of English football, nobody gave them a chance, given the flying form of Swansea in League One. Much was the anticipation of the tie, fans were still pouring in when Gary Monk scored an own goal on 4 minutes. Havant were unfazed by the difference in stature and raced into a 3-goal lead on the 37th minute, with goals by Jamie Collins and Rocky Baptiste. Swansea, now wounded, fought back, creating plenty of chances, including scoring an immediate reply through Guillem Borza. Leon Britton then failed to find the net with his penalty, and the attacking pressure finally succumbed when Jason Scotland followed up after Guillem Borza hit the post. Swansea were unrelenting as they tried to force the equaliser, but in the 65th minute, when substitute Tom Jordan headed Havant and Waterloo's fourth. Despite Swansea hitting the woodwork twice in the final 6 minutes, and the post in the dying minutes, Havant held strong and provided one of the biggest shocks. Havant would draw Liverpool in the 4th round and continued their reputation early, leading Liverpool twice before being brought level, and it took 56 minutes for the Premier League team to take the lead. And while Havant eventually lost 5-2, they created plenty of chances. The exploits put Havant's name into a list of giant killing fairy tales. Swansea would go on to win League One and book themselves a place in the Championship the following season, but a place in the greatest giant killings will always be synonymous with Havant and Waterlooville. At number 8, Wrexham. Arsenal were the reigning champions of England, having lifted the title at the end of the 1990-91 season. On the other hand, Wrexham had finished bottom of the Football League, the 4th tier of English football, that very same season. The gulf between the sides was apparent, and but for the expansion of the Football League, Wrexham would have found themselves to be a non-league team. It would be the sort of tie that today's channels would eat up, given the polar opposites in fortunes and the spirit of the FA Cup. Instead, people intrigued by the tie who couldn't attend were updated via one of the final score services on ITV, BBC or Radio 5. Arsenal, despite missing a couple of key players, put out a very strong team, while Wrexham's makeup consisted of young players, but did feature 3 Welsh internationals in Gordon Davies, Joey Jones and Mickey Thomas. Despite half chances for Wrexham, Arsenal were the better team in the first half, and scored through Alan Smith before the break to give them a 1-0 lead at half-time. The second half was a more even affair, and in the 82nd minute FA Cup folklore was about to happen. Wrexham awarded a free kick, and up stepped 37-year-old veteran Mickey Thomas to score a 25-yard goal that equalised the game and give the Welshman immortality in FA Cup folklore. At this point, Wrexham would have been happy for the game to go to a replay, but thanks to mistakes Wrexham capitalised on, and a 90-year-old Steve Watkins would score the winner to put Wrexham into the 4th round. while Arsenal manager George Graham called this the lowest moment in football. Arsenal would go on to finish 4th in the top division that season before lifting the cup the following year. Wrexham would go out in the next round to West Ham and finish mid-table in the 4th division. But nobody can take away the feat achieved, and Wrexham deserved their place in the greatest giant killings. At number 7, Hereford. Hereford at the time were a Southern League team, unfancied against Newcastle, who were in the old First Division, featuring Malcolm MacDonald and Bobby Moncur, and they weren't expected to find it a tough task. Having already took Newcastle to a replay in front of 39,000 at St James's Park, the so-called unmatched teams would meet again at Hereford in February. Having been delayed 3 times, the match seemed to edge towards the plan, although not with the conviction many had predicted, as Malcolm MacDonald did give Newcastle the lead in the 82nd minute. Many were in no doubt that Newcastle were bound for the 4th round, and when the unscripted scenes 3 minutes later unfolded, as Ronnie Radford cemented his name in FA Cup folklore. Amongst an official 14,000 but an unofficial 16,000, we saw scenes of people who had clambered up trees. Having played a 1-2 with Brian Owen, the ball fell kindly on the muddied pitch, and Radford's shot thunderbolted into the back of the net. Debut commentator John Motson instantly cheering, "What a goal, what a goal." Radford running away with arms aloft in the air, he was met with home supporters invading the pitch to celebrate with their newfound hero. With extra time now inevitable, the scene was set, and Newcastle had the wind knocked out of their sail. While they had chances, it didn't trouble Hereford, and in the 103rd minute, Ronnie Radford found Dudley Tyler, who crossed towards Ricky George. Ricky George was able to get the ball down and fire across to the corner to send Hereford 2-1 up. Cue another pitch invasion. Newcastle weren't convincing, and Hereford provided what many would consider the biggest shock at that point. Hereford would take West Ham to a replay in the 4th round, but that was too far for them as they lost 3-1. With that being said, Hereford's 3rd round exploits will live long in the memory of the greatest giant-killing upsets. Number 6, Wycombe Wanderers. In 2001, Leicester were an established Premier League side, and would subsequently finish mid-table that same year. They had a cup pedigree behind them, having lifted the League Cup twice in 4 years previously. Wycombe was some way down the pyramid in the 4th tier, while not being considered as a promotion candidate. En route to the quarter-final, they had disposed of Harlow, Millwall, Grimsby, Wolves and Wimbledon, but this was expected to be the end of the line for them as they were away against Leicester. Though those feats were already a great achievement, this capped off something that movie producers couldn't have written. A week before the quarter-final with Leicester, Wycombe had placed an advert on a teletext service to try and gain the services of a forward. Having contacted Ian Wright and Gianluca Vialli previously, who had both said no, the man who answered their call was the unheralded Roy Asando, a Northern Irish striker who had journeyed to Scotland and Finland and had recently been released by Rushden. He was signed on a very short initial 2-week contract and was duly named on the sub-bench for the game. Wycombe were managed by one-time Wimbledon FA Cup winner and goalscorer Laurie Sanchez, who completed their own giant-killing win in the final in 1988. The first half was fairly even, as they went into the break deadlocked. But 5 minutes after the restart, Paul McCarthy scored to put the visitors 1-0 up. They would hold on to their slim lead until the 67th minute, when Muzzy Izzet equalised to ease the nerves of Leicester supporters. Cue Roy Asando. Wycombe having been denied an obvious penalty. Wycombe thought they had missed their opportunity. Laurie Sanchez, so incensed, was sent off, and had to watch the remainder on a monitor in the dressing rooms. A free kick cleared out, came back in, and Roy Asando headed goalwards to put Wycombe 2-1 up in injury time. Steve Brown was issued a red card for over-celebrating, and while Wycombe were reduced to 10 men, they clung on to book their semi-final match with Liverpool. While they couldn't go that one step further, they won the hearts of neutral fans across the land, as they were far from outclassed against a star-studded Liverpool team who would eventually lift the cup. Wycombe and Asando's name are emblazoned on the minds of fans for their giant-killing exploits of 2001. At number 5, Lincoln. Lincoln had been through some tough times in recent years, including relegation to the non-league football in 2011. Lincoln had started their FA Cup campaign in the fourth qualifying round on their way to meet Burnley. They had dispatched of Guiseley, Altrincham, Oldham, Ipswich and Brighton under the leadership of Danny Cowley, proving there were no easy pushovers and capable of beating sides above them already. The game seemed to be heading to a 0-0 draw, with one of the points being a rough challenge by Matt Reed on Joey Barton, something which would later turn into something more serious. Tame shots were easily handled, and the pattern, although in the favour of Burnley, wasn't causing problems for Lincoln. Barton, following his scuffle with Reed earlier in the game, would appear to go down clutching his head without any contact. Replays would show that it was Barton who had stamped on Reed's foot and then tried to trick the referee. Joey Barton would continue his reckless behaviour, pushing Hawkridge in the face and then Flanagan joining in. A melee ensued before Barton, who should have seen red, but was only brandished a yellow card. Burnley did go in search of a goal, only for Lincoln to hold strong. In the 89th minute, Sean Raggett scored a header from a corner, which was awarded following goal line technology. As Burnley tried to rescue the tie, Lincoln goalkeeper Paul Farman stood tall. This was also the first time in 103 years that a non-league side reached the last 8 of the FA Cup since QPR in 1914. For their resolve and determination, they were awarded a quarter-final tie with Arsenal. This time, the golfing class was on show as Arsenal dismantled Lincoln 5-0. But the Imps hold their heads high and etched their names into giant-killing legend status, and were only knocked out of the competition by their eventual champions Arsenal. Lincoln would end the season as national champions, winning promotion back to the Football League. Number 4. Oldham. 2012 League Cup champions Liverpool found themselves away from home against Oldham in the 4th round of the FA Cup, having come through 2-1 against Mansfield in the 3rd round. Having recently dismantled Norwich 5-0 in the league, Liverpool were huge odds-on favourites to progress through to round 5 at the expense of lower league Oldham, who were involved in preventing being dragged into a relegation fight in League One. It was Oldham though who took the lead thanks to Matt Smith, who scored, but Liverpool, who weren't under strength, equalised thanks to the individual efforts of standing captain Luis Suarez. It was a combination of tenacious hard work and goalkeeping error that provided Oldham with their second to take the lead again as Matt Smith doubled his tally. Going into the break 2-1 up, in the second half you wouldn't have thought that there was a gap, and on loan Reece Wabara put the hosts 3-1 up. Reece was on loan from Premier League rivals Manchester City. Fearing the game was now in danger, Liverpool continued to try and find a way through, and it took a deflected strike from Joe Allen to get the game back. At this stage though, they were 3-2 down, and though there was 10 minutes remaining, even the substitute and Liverpool legend Steven Gerrard couldn't save them. After capitalising on a loose ball, his shot hit the woodwork. Oldham weren't in even remotely good form coming in, having lost 7 of their last 8 games, but they showed the heart and determination needed to progress in the FA Cup. Oldham would go out in the next round, but not before holding Everton to a 2-2 draw, to earn a replay where they were eventually knocked out 3-1. Oldham defied what were seemingly impossible odds to put their name amongst the biggest giant killings. At 3, Bradford City. Chelsea would go on to be crowned the 2014-15 Premier League champions, losing just 3 times along the way, while also picking up the League Cup title. Bradford had fallen from their heady days of Premier League status, contending for mid-table spots in League One. Given the vast sizing difference in the clubs, many expected the future champions to walk the tie and book their place in round 4, especially given they were at home in front of the Stamford Bridge faithful. In the 21st minute, the script was correct, as Cahill scored from a corner for Chelsea to put them 1-0 up, and when future Liverpool superstar Mo Salah set up Ramirez for the second on the 38th minute, everything looked set up for the remainder of the match, for the home fans to enjoy. Though little did they know someone had flipped the script, and on the 41st minute John Stead scored an outstanding goal following Chelsea unable to deal from a free kick from former Chelsea youngster Philippe Moraes. Bradford were now back into the game, 2-1 down going into the break. It was Philippe Moraes who completed his homecoming when he slotted home in the 75th minute to equalise for the Minnows, as the Bradford fans went into meltdown. Then it was the stuff of dreams, as both Moraes and Stead were involved in the third goal as Andy Halliday put their Bantams 3-2 up on the 82nd minute. As jubilation unfolded, it wasn't ready for what happened next, as Chelsea went all out to find the equaliser. But in the 4th minute of time added on, they fell asleep as Stead, involved again, played a great ball into Mark Yeats, who placed it beyond the keeper into the corner. A star-studded Chelsea had been left in shock, as Bradford went into the next round with a truly scintillating performance. Although many thought the game was an anomaly, the Bantams dispatched of Sunderland to reach the quarter-finals, where it took Reading a replay to become victorious. John Stead had lit up the match involved throughout, and Bradford will be remembered for beating the next champions, to etch their names onto the Giant Killings Hall of Fame. At number 2, Sutton. In 1987, Coventry had lifted the FA Cup on the hallowed turf at Wembley Stadium, as the Two Towers witnessed them coming from behind twice to beat the much-fancied Spurs team. Sutton toughed it out in the Conference, England's 5th tier. Given the recent history of Coventry, who were sitting 5th in the First Division, having just beaten Sheffield Wednesday 5-0 in the last league game, and the lowly standing of Sutton, this was the banker of the third round, that Coventry would dispatch the non-league outfit and progress. Sutton had faced top-flight opposition before, some 19 years ago, when they were swiftly dispatched 6-0 by Leeds United. 8,000 plus fans crammed in to see the game, something not used to being on show at Sutton. Coventry started and looked like the top-flight opposition, attacking with vigour, only with no end result, and limiting Sutton to long punts and poor shots. But Sutton club captain Tony Raines got his head to a corner on the 42nd minute, and non-league Sutton found themselves in front at Gander Green Lane. In the second half, Coventry found the back of the net thanks to the left-back David Phillips, who was assisted by Steve Sedgley. Normal service looked to have been resumed, but the sigh of relief would last just 7 minutes. Coventry failed to deal with another corner from Sutton, as Matthew Hanlon put the underdogs in front with an assist from Phil Dawson. It was Sutton who now looked like the bigger club, with Hanlon having another chance to score, dealing with anything Coventry could muster. As the final whistle blew, celebrations were underway. Despite this humbling defeat, Coventry would go on to finish 7th in the First Division. Sutton would go on to face Norwich City at Carrow Road. Norwich ran out convincingly 8-0 winners on their way to the semi-final, while Sutton put their name in lights for the footballing world to take note, as they added their names to the greatest giant killings list. At number 1, Chesterfield. Chesterfield's entire run of the 1997 FA Cup has to go down as one of the biggest giant killings. Collectively, they put out sides above them, and but for poor refereeing they could have got to the final, which would have been by far one of the biggest achievements ever witnessed in the FA Cup. The second division side started their campaign against Bury, having already been knocked out of the League Cup to Stockport previously. Bury were doing well in the league, and so it was a good result for Chesterfield, who won 1-0, thanks to a Mark Williams goal. Scarborough were up next, and Chesterfield ran out convincing 2-0 winners, thanks to goals from future Bolton and Premier League legend Kevin Davies and Tony Lormer. Avoiding the bigger teams in round 3, it was set up for an even tie against Bristol City, and with home advantage, Chesterfield won 2-0 again to progress to round 4, with goals from Jonathan Howard. In the 4th round they would draw Bolton Wanderers, who would subsequently go on to win the First Division and promotion to the Premier League. Enter Kevin Davies, who must have impressed the visitors that day, as he scored a hat-trick to defeat them on their home ground. Davies had put Chesterfield ahead when he took the ball down and placed it past the keeper. Bolton did reply from a corner through Scott Taylor to tie the game at 1-1. Davies added again when confusion amongst Bolton, who were in possession. He stole the ball, running on to slot into the bottom corner. Another uncommon mishap from Bolton allowed Davies to complete his hat-trick. Bolton did reply through Scott Green, but it was in vain as Chesterfield had progressed. Nottingham Forest awaited them in the next round, and although the Premier League side was struggling in the top flight, many thought the opposition would be a little too strong. At home, Chesterfield didn't look out of place. Howard and Davies were causing all sorts of issues, which ultimately led to a penalty in the 54th minute, as Mark Crossley brought down Jonathan Howard. Crossley was duly sent off, and his replacement Alan Fettis couldn't save from Tom Curtis. As the match continued, 1-0 seemed to flatter Nottingham Forest, as Chesterfield could have had 2, 3, maybe 4. Having dispatched of higher opposition, they were then rewarded with a more realistic chance in the quarter-finals as they faced Wrexham, who were at about the same level in the same division. One of them would make history, and on this occasion it was Chesterfield. Chris Beaumont scoring the goal, and minutes later striking the post as Chesterfield began to show the class that had got them this far. While it remained 1-0, it could have been more, but John Duncan, the Chesterfield manager, had masterminded their route to the semi-final, where they would play Middlesbrough. The fabulous skills of Italian maestro Fabrizio Ravanelli and Brazilian genius Juninho were evident early, but Chesterfield held firm, and when Kevin Davies had seemingly broke away, Vladimir Kinder brought him down. Receiving his second booking, the Premier League giants were down to 10 men. As they settled into the game, Howard and Davies were causing problems again, and as Howard and Davies worked some magic, a rebound fell to Andy Morris, who made sure they took the lead. As Chesterfield grew in confidence, they started to cut Middlesbrough open, and when Ben Roberts brought down Morris, a penalty was inevitable. Up stepped future Burnley and Premier League manager Sean Dyche, who scored his first goal in 4 years to put Chesterfield 2-0 up. Fabrizio Ravanelli did pull one back, as he bundled the goal into the net. Chesterfield then broke through again, and Howard struck the bar. As the ball bounced down, it had gone over the line, a legitimate goal that would have put Chesterfield 3-1 up in the tie. This was not given, and the complexion of the game changed. Shortly, a penalty was awarded, as Dyche brought down Juninho. Although the keeper judged it correctly, Craig Ignat equalised the tie at 2-2. With 20 minutes to go, it was now all to play for, and after Middlesbrough hit the bar, the rebound found its way to Fester, who put it in the back of the net to put the tie in Middlesbrough's favour at 3-2. With a minute remaining, Jamie Hewitt would equalise, after a long ball played in to send the celebrations into orbit and ensure a replay was needed. And but for a wrong decision, the celebrations could have been on another level. Middlesbrough duly showed their class in the replay, winning 3-0 to book their place in the final. But Chesterfield, not just in one match but throughout the campaign, stuck it to the bigger teams, outplayed them and looked good doing so, and but for one decision could have made history. For this reason, Chesterfield's entire run gives them the title of the greatest giant killings in FA Cup history. Honourable mentions before we close this episode, and teams who could have made the top 10, include Wimbledon's heroics to defeat Liverpool thanks to a Laurie Sanchez goal in the 1988 FA Cup final, who but for English teams being banned from European competitions could have added a whole new crazy adventure to the Crazy Gang tales. York City, who in 1985 upset the Arsenal to win 1-0, Luton's victory in 2013 over Norwich City, Bournemouth's 2-0 victory under the guidance of young Harry Redknapp in 1984 over Manchester United, Stevenage, who beat Newcastle 3-1 in 2011, and Wigan's famous FA Cup victory over Manchester City in 2013, all of which and others could have featured in this list. I hope you all enjoyed listening and watching, and that's all from 4 Hours More. Please check out our other channel 4 Hours Later, and be sure to like and subscribe for future episodes in a similar series.
We are heroes tonight.